This lecture is on cell theory. Cell theory is the idea that all living things have a basic cellular organization. It consists of three parts. All living organisms are made of cells. The smallest unit considered living is a cell. And cells come from other cells. They don't just show up on their own every time a new organism comes into being. So the basic idea is that living things and cells go hand in hand. You don't really have one without the other. So this image is a more accurate image of what a cell really looks like. A lot of times when you see pictures of cells, they're very simple diagrams that are very, very easy to interpret. This obviously is not so easy to interpret. You can see a cell membrane here. This is the outside of the cell. This is the inside of the cell. There's another membrane here that might be a mitochondria. I'm not sure. This is taken with a very sophisticated microscope, and the colors were added later to make it easier for you to figure out what you're looking at. So, all cells have to be able to do several critical functions in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to grow more cells. They have to be able to control what comes into the cell and what goes out of the cell. You don't want the cell interior to be flooded with, say, salt to the point where it gets dehydrated. You don't want nutrients to just flow out of the cell. You want them to stay inside the cell. Cells also have to convert food into cellular energy. Photosynthesis is how plants convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into sugar, but they use that sugar to make cellular energy. Photosynthesis makes the sugar makes the cellular energy. We have to eat in order to get cellular energy. Cells also must be able to manufacture parts that they need. These parts are proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. You may be thinking of the nutritional terms, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids or fats. They're the same thing. We're talking about parts of the cell that are critical for cellular function. Biologists divide cells into two major categories based on internal structures. We divide them into prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells tend to be much smaller than eukaryotic cells. The word prokaryotic, the pro portion of the word means before, the karyon portion refers to the nucleus. So it's before the nucleus. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. Let me repeat that because it's very important. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. And the types of organisms that have prokaryotic cells are bacteria and a group called archaea. You may or may not be familiar with archaea. Prokaryotic cells do not form complex multicellular organisms. So they can form colonies and aggregations, but the individual cells can be separated from the colony or the aggregation and still be alive. Unlike the cells in a complex multicellular organism like us, which are all dependent on each other. And so our cells are the different type of cells, the other type, the eukaryotic cells. That U, that EU at the beginning means true, and karyon again is nucleus. eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. That is the defining characteristic of eukaryotic cells. I'm going to say it again. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. We're going to talk about what a nucleus is in a bit. Eukaryotic cells also have other small structures inside of them that are called organelles. The nucleus holds the genetic material of the eukaryotic cells, and the organelles all have different distinct functions. Eukaryotic cells tend to be larger than prokaryotic cells, and they can exist in single-celled organisms, things like yeast, but they can also make complex multicellular life, like us, like trees, like cats, like plants and animals of any kind, whales, giraffes, zebra, crabs, flamingos, you name it. If it's a complex multicellular life, it's going to have eukaryotic cells. You can see some diagrams here of a simplified eukaryotic cell and a simplified prokaryotic cell. These are not to scale with each other. The size difference is usually much bigger than this. Prokaryotic cells form these cells can function individually. I mentioned that before. And organisms with prokaryotic cells, as I mentioned in the last slide, form the groups bacteria and archaea. When we start talking about how life is organized, we start with the domain level. There are 3 domains of life: bacteria, archaea, which are both prokaryotes, and then eukaryotes. So all eukaryotes are lumped together in the same very, very large group called a domain. Interestingly, the archaea group of prokaryotes are genetically and biochemically more similar to us than they are to bacteria. Really, some interesting stuff has been found out about archaea in the past decade or so. Cells are not always round like you see in this picture here. They can have folds, they can have extensions of that membrane, that outer surface of the cell, which increase the surface area for a better surface area to volume ratio. The surface area to volume ratio determines how big the cell can get. So there's a maximum size a cell can get based on the amount of surface area it has. You can see a bunch of different varieties, different shapes of cells here. Red blood cells are kind of close to round, but they've got an indentation on the surface. You can see these columnar epithelial cells have all these little projections. These are going to be found in the digestive tract, and these projections are important for taking up nutrients from the inside of the digestive tract. The adult human body has an estimated 30 to 40 trillion cells. This is a huge number, and it's very hard to get your brain around it. So let's go through to give you an idea of how big these are. We hear the term million a lot. It's a big number. 1,000,000 seconds is 12 days. Okay, that's not Well, that gives you some idea of the scale. 12 days worth of seconds. That's starting to get to be a big number there. The other way you can look at it is if you spend $3,600 an hour, every hour, 24 days, it would take you 12 days to spend $1 million. No breaks, no sleeping. Got to spend that $3,600 an hour every day. That's $86,400 a day. Whew. That would be fun the first couple of days, and then it would start getting to be challenging, I think. $1 billion, is much, much bigger than a million. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. And again, that $3,600 an hour, 24 hours a day, would take you 32 years to spend. It's hard to spend $1 billion. And that's assuming you don't make any interest on that money. But we've got 30 to 40 trillion cells in our body. So what is a trillion? A trillion seconds is 31,688 years. You probably cannot spend $1 trillion in your life unless you give away billions and billions to charity. Which, frankly, if you have $1 trillion, you should be giving billions of dollars to charity because you're never going to spend that money. All right, so that is the introduction to cell theory and what cells are.